My name is Richard Delacy, and I teach in the college. I teach South Asian languages in the Department of South Asian Studies. And today's speaker, obviously, is Mr. Rahul Bose. But before he speaks and before I introduce him formally, I would like to ask the Dean of the college, Dean Khurana, to come up and say a few words to all of us and to give his formal introduction to the event. So,
great. Thank you, Professor Delacy. Hi, I'm Rakesh Khurana. So I always start every discussion with the mission of the college, which I think is particularly appropriate given the topic of this discussion of success and its meanings. So the mission of Harvard College has been for almost 400 years now to educate the citizens and citizen leaders for our society. It's a mission we deeply believe in. We helped educate some of the individuals who imagined this country. We helped educate individuals who led the anti-slavery and abolition movements. My former student, Everett Spain, who's now a professor at West Point, tells me that other than West Point, no institution has given more lives in service of its nation than Harvard College, and that other than West Point, no institution has more individuals awarded the Medal of Honor than Harvard College. And that idea of service and citizenship extends to the women's movement, where at Radcliffe, this notion that women should be and not denied full access to Harvard was created. To the civil rights movement, you will see fingerprints of our students, faculty, Professor Marshall Gantz, Diana Eck, Drew Faust, our president, to equality of marriage. You will see the fingerprints of Harvard students, faculty, and staff all over these ideas around citizenship and citizen leadership. And we do this through our belief in the transformative power of a liberal arts and sciences education. And it begins with the intellectual transformation. New ways of knowing, new ways of understanding, all toward the goal of developing an independent mind, to learn the difference between dogma and ideology, to develop the capacity for an appreciation for reason, facts, empiricism, finding meaning and purpose in poetry, in language, in history, literature, science. And then what's unique, I think, about the Harvard College experience is that we embed that in a very diverse living environment where our students study alongside students who are different from them, who come from different walks of life, have different identities, evolving identities, which we believe not only deepens the intellectual transformation, but creates the conditions for social transformation. That our understanding of what a community is changes, that it's not just a collection of interests, that a dialogue is not simply the exchange of claims and counterclaims. And then from that experience, with that intellectual and social transformation, we hope our students begin to answer some questions for themselves. Who am I, and who do I want to be? How do I relate to others, and what can I learn from others? What are my gifts and talents, and how can I best use them to serve the world? So a personal transformation. I think sometimes we forget how radical this experiment is that we're engaging in. Because we are often leaning in a world that actually delivers the exact opposite message, which basically says education is just a commodity. Think about it as what job it will lead you to, or what your return on investment is, or what that is. And we are leaning into a world that sort of pushes against that model of liberal arts and sciences. We're leaning into a world which says, actually, we can learn from we learn from our differences. Our differences are sources of infinite possibility. Our common humanity is where we can find our foundation. And yet, out in the world where we see where human destiny has never been more interdependent, people retreating into themselves, finding that they want to be around people who remind them of their favorite person themselves. And the kind of intellectual conformity, social conformity that all that creates. We're leaning in a world that says, don't worry, don't think too much, don't reflect, and yet we're trying to ask people to ask themselves questions about what is my purpose? Why was I put here on this earth? How can my presence and what are my gifts and how can I use them to make an impact on others and look beyond myself? And so I feel this is a really great gratitude to have you here, Rahul, because I know you've talked on and have done work in a variety of areas through a variety of disciplines and mediums on a variety of these issues around intellectual, social, and personal transformation and kind of embody in many ways the idea of what a citizen and citizen leader who's making a difference in the world does. So I am really grateful that you're here, and I apologize that I'm not going to be able to stay, but I'm very glad that that's going to be videotaped, and I hope I will have an opportunity to grab that at some point very soon, and I will just reserve it for myself to do it. But welcome, and it's really grateful to have you here. So.
So it's thank you, Dean Khurana, for that introduction. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Rahul Bose, who, as you know, is a well-known actor, director, screenplay writer, living and working in Bombay, but he's also much more than that, including an international rugby player, I believe, which is perhaps something that we share. I have a secret passion for rugby myself, coming from Australia. Even though the Australian team doesn't do particularly well these days. But so I've been asked to introduce him formally because I teach languages in the college, South Asian languages, Hindi and Urdu, and I also teach a course on Bollywood cinema. As I said, Rahul is much more than, well, obviously a film career is a very demanding career, but he's done very much more than that, and his list of achievements is quite long. But to begin with, I was asked to do this because of, I guess, the little knowledge I have of the filmmaking tradition in South Asia, and I was thinking that I would begin by just talking a little bit about his career and some of the films that he's made along the way. But to begin with, when we think of Bollywood cinema, obviously we imagine a filmmaking tradition that seems highly melodramatic, unrealistic, replete with song and dance, overly formulaic and romantic, and I guess since the 1990s, starring at least one person with the surname Khan. So while there obviously are many films that have been produced over the years like this, there are many misconceptions about this complex world of filmmaking, and in a way I think Rahul Bose's career, specifically the films that he's acted in, as well as directed and produced, help us to understand that there's much more to this world than I guess this limited perception allows for. Many of Rahul's films are commercial enterprises, but they could also be characterized to some degree as art house cinema, or perhaps using an older term, parallel cinema, to some degree. I mean, that's a term that's not in favor so much anymore. But just to tell you a little bit about his career, Rahul has acted in, I believe, over 35 films in several languages, including Hindi, Bengali, English, Malayalam, and Tamil. And some of the films that he's acted in are adaptations from well-known literary novels, such as Midnight's Children and English August. Some focus on important social issues, including communal tension, and I'm thinking of Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, if anyone's seen that film, violence towards women, 15 Park Avenue, and sex work in Bombay, Chameli, which is one of my favorite. I've had the good fortune to see some of Rahul's films, and that's one of my favorites. He's also acted in what could be considered, I guess, indie romance comedies, such as Jhankar Beats and Pyar Ke Side Effects. And in addition to this, he's acted with some of the most important leading women in Indian cinema, including Shabana Azmi, Kareena Kapoor, Juhi Chawla, Konkana Sen Sharma, and Malika Sharvat. He apparently has been described as an Indian art house cinema icon by Time magazine, and I believe by the Italian magazine Maxim as the Sean Penn of Oriental cinema, which, when I thought about it, means obviously Sean Penn must be the Rahul Bose of Occidental cinema. So, anyway. He's also won a Best Actor award at the Singapore Film Festival in 2000 for a performance in Split Wide Open. In 2002 at the Palm Springs Festival, he was awarded the runner-up prize for the Best Debut Director for his film Everybody Says I'm Fine. And his work has been so influential that he's had 2 retrospectives, one in Geneva in 2004 and one in Toronto in 2007. So that's, in a sense, on the film side of things. But Rahul's other achievements are also extremely numerous, and so you'll forgive me, but I wanted to list a few of these. In 2006, he formed his NGO, the foundation, and it's dedicated to the removal of discrimination from all walks of life. He is also an Oxfam Global Ambassador, and he's launched several campaigns from gender justice to the education of children. In 2009, he was voted the Indian Youth Icon of the Year for social justice. In 2010, he was awarded the Green Globe Award for his work on climate change. In 2012, he was awarded NDTV Celebrity Sports Activist for the year. And in the same year, on Independence Day, he was conferred the Lieutenant Governor's Commendation Award for services to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. In 2013, he was awarded the Hakim Khan Sur Award for his work towards national integration by the Maharana of Mewar Foundation. And in 2014, he was named on the prestigious Executive Council of the Union Ministry of Home Affairs National Foundation for Communal Harmony. And as I mentioned in the beginning, he's also a former international rugby player, and he represented India for, I think it's 11 years, up until 2009. But finally, he's a prolific speaker, and he's lectured in many places on gender equality, Indian cinema, and other various topics at universities such as Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, MIT, Columbia, Cornell, and of course today at Harvard. So I would like you to join me in welcoming Rahul today to Harvard. And he's going to speak on the topic, the question isn't beyond Harvard, what? It is beyond Harvard, how? Reimagining success, satisfaction, and security. And if I could put my language teacher's hat on for a second, I would say, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है, स्वागत सत्कार करते हैं, और बहुत खुशी की बात है कि आप हमसे मिलने के लिए, बात करने के लिए आए हैं आज. तो thank you, and please join me in welcoming Rahul Bose.
Thank you. Shukriya, Richard. Thank you so much for the very, very kind words. I thought Rakesh also spoke so beautifully. I didn't want to stop listening to him. You're so lucky to have such a charismatic dean. So the reason I've structured this talk the way it is because I just want you to save time. Time that took years that it took me to get to the realization that I am at right now. I just really, really, whenever I go to schools and colleges, the first thing I think of is, I wish I can prevent those years and years of, those lost years, so to speak, and just deliver it to you on a platter right here and right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through 3 factors I believe should unlock every single source of happiness for you. You, not just anybody else, just you, the way you are today at Harvard or whichever university you're studying at, if you're not from here, just you. I studied in a school called Cathedral in Bombay. I went to Sydenham College, and I was very much geared and prepared to triumph in this whole urban race. Since I was not very good at science, I did commerce, which is the default boy thing to do, and then you must do an MBA, and I applied. After my 12th, I applied for undergraduate school, and I got rejected by every single university I had applied to in America, including this one. Harvard, Cornell, Yale, MIT, the Ivy Leagues, just you name it. I was the most decorated boy in Cathedral School's history, and I had straight A's and everything, and I was rejected. Decided to do my undergraduate in Bombay, very depressed. Decided to redeem myself by applying for an MBA, which I did, and the university I finally got admission to said, you're too young, defer your admission by 2 years, work for 2 years and come. And it was while I was working for those 2 years that I opened a diary and wrote down on one of the pages, if it wasn't for economic considerations, what is it that I would like to do? And I said, 1, act. And I put a cross next to it, because I was a theater actor making 500 rupees, $9 a weekend. 2, write. You just can't become a writer overnight. You would need 4 or 5 years. You can't write at the age of 20 anyway. Anything serious. So I put a cross to it. I said, 3, copywriting, advertising. So why not? And so I became an advertising copywriter. I was doing theatre in the evenings. In India, you just do your shows on the weekend. And so life was fine. Till one day, I was doing a play, and Dave Benegal, this gentleman who made a film called English August, my first film, saw me in a play and cast me in that movie. That movie became a huge success. It was an art house movie, great role, very satisfying. And so for the year after it was made, after we shot the film, I was still in advertising, doing incredibly well. And after a year, when the film became this hit, I decided to quit and be an actor. I am completely convinced my figures are wrong, but I believe that everybody in this world has something that they are magical at. Something that comes instinctively. Something whose history, whose poetry, whose life, whose rhythm, whose muscles, whose nerves we just understand. But 9 out of 10 of us never find it. And out of the 1 out of 10 of us who find it, 9 out of those 10 never make it their life. How many times have you heard an uncle saying, I used to play the violin beautifully, but I mean, how do you make a career out of that? Or I was born to be an aeronautical engineer kind of guy, but my sister was getting married, I had to make money, I stayed back in India. Whatever. Life is littered with these regrets. And that's why that's really the reason why I'm here. I just hope that if there's somebody teetering on the brink of indecision or hasn't found it, this will make some sense. So basically, it's 1 out of 100 people in this world, in my own fanciful calculations, who has found what she or he is magical at and is making that their life. So I'd like very much to talk about those people and very much talk about the rest of us, like the 99 others or the 90 others, and find ways to taste from that chalice of pure and unadulterated satisfaction and happiness. So let's say that you found what you're fantastic at. Let's take something completely from left field. Let's say that you're just a gifted gardener. How does that sound? Right? And I need your help on this one. Let's say you're a gifted gardener. Whatever you do, whatever you touch, grows. You're fantastic at it. You loved it as a kid. You just love playing with soil, with seeds, with flowers. Any time, that's your thing. Okay, so I'm not even saying something as mainstreamish as acting. Let's just take gardening. And you're going to say, okay, if you really asked me, Rahul, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. But how absurd is it for me to even think of my life as a gardener, given the fact that it's going to take me 2 years to go to garden school at Harvard. It's going to cost me how much? $100,000? Plus another $100,000? $200,000 to learn what? Gardening and landscape major. Or masters in whatever, right? A master's in MGL. So I'm $200,000 down, and I've done it. I've done my master's from the best gardening and landscaping course or school in the world. Whether it's in Hong Kong or whether it's in Harvard, it doesn't matter, right? So, let's get talking. You've come out of Cambridge armed with the finest degree in gardening and landscaping. Don't forget, this is something you're magical at. It comes beautifully to you. And you go back to India. I'm not even making it easy and saying you're in America. You go back to India. You have to pay back $200,000 in how many years, Richard? These student loans? 10 years? 20 years? What is it? 10 years? And how much would it be a year? $10,000? Let's say $15,000. So you have to return $15,000, which in Indian rupees is 15,000 into 60 is 10 lakhs. Plus you have to live. Okay, so would you like me to do this an American example or an Indian example? Which one would you prefer? Indian. So So 1 lakh a month is going to go straight on your loan. Now to live in Bombay, the most expensive city, and to live well, you need another lakh. Car, nice place, just a lakh, maybe a lakh 50. You need 2.5 lakhs a month, right? To live like, come on, Rahul, I haven't done this to live like a pauper. I want to live well. 3 lakhs. And you're happy. Let's make 3 lakhs right now. How do I make money? I'm a gardener and a landscape artist. Anybody? How can I make money? And it's unheard of in India, right? How can I make money?
You could go make lavish gardens for the billionaires living in Bombay.
Lavish gardens for billionaires living in Bombay, they hardly have any gardens, probably a few of them. How much would you pay if you were somebody who had a garden house, say in Alibag or outside Bombay? How much would you pay for somebody to come and landscape your garden once a month? 10,000 rupees? Because you have a Mali is, the gardener. So landscaping and stuff, okay, I'll give you 10,000 bucks a month to come. How long will it take you to do that work? A week in a month? This is not working, guys. At this rate, we're going to make 40,000 rupees. We have to make 300,000 rupees from this. Any more suggestions? Landscape projects and urban development sounds fancy. What does it translate into? New buildings? Yeah? Did you say that or did? Oh yeah. So new buildings coming up, we'll landscape it, but that's a one-off, right? I'll landscape the gardens around this building, and Bombay doesn't have too many gardens. Let's talk real. Yes.
You make a company, employ lots of people, then leave the market in India.
Employ people to do what? Garden. How? How much money do I have to put? I can't spend any more money, excuse me. I'm prepared to travel. I'll give you a hint. I'm prepared to travel across the country to make this money, right? But I'm not prepared to invest more money.
Well, you could teach them. Try find a market, right?
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to say hotels. Okay? The Rambagh Palace in Jaipur, the Leela hotels in Delhi, sprawling, massive properties that require constant gardening and require landscaping for sure at least once a month. How much as a hotel would you charge me to come in there if I'm fantastic at what I do and I have a brilliant portfolio to spend 1 week at the Rambagh, Jaipur to look after and train the gardeners and the support staff? How much would you pay me for a week's work? 50,000 rupees to handle that size of garden, right? So you have a week in Jaipur, and a week in Delhi, and a week at the Park Hyatt in Goa, and a week in the Chennai beautiful new property at the Leela. And you've made 200,000 rupees. And if you toss in the remaining time that you have doing someone's house in Bombay, you'd get, or someone's whatever, which is close by, you'd get 25,000 rupees. You are already in the clear. You're making 1,25,000 over and above your student loan, which is actually 90,000. As a fledgling first-time gardener, your price is only going to go up. This is completely doable and completely possible. And if a gardener, if somebody who's fantastic at that can do it, anybody who has something they're magical at, the reason I took this is because if that can happen, and you can generate 2.5 lakhs a month, when you start off, it can happen with any other profession. So if you found what you want to do, please don't give it up. Think hard as how you can monetize it. Now let's come to the more interesting part. Let's get to the 90 others who haven't found what they're doing. My first thing is start anywhere. What should I do? Start anywhere. I'm going to give you a real life example of a friend of mine. He was a product manager at a company like Unilever that makes soaps. As a product manager, they would make different formulations of soaps every year and put it out. He and his team made a formulation of soap that was gentle. The one day in the month that he looked forward to most in his job was to meet the marketing department. They would come and say, okay, what have you got? And he would say, well, this time actually, guys, we have a soap that's got it's a gentle formulation. Okay, cool. Right, fine. So we'll decide how to market this. Goodbye. Listen, hang on one second. I know it's not my place to say this, but could you think of targeting the middle-income housewife who has no time and even less money to spend on herself? This is a soap that is gentle on her skin, makes her look good. It's like, we thought of maybe kids. The marketing department says we could use it for children, but that's been done. This is a market that's wide open. The pricing could be right. This is a decent idea. Listen, what are you doing in product? Why don't you join us? And he did. And the one day in the month in the marketing department of the soap making company that he loved most was the day he met the client servicing people from the advertising agency. They would come and say, okay, what have you got? And he'd say, we have this soap that's got gentle formulation, and we are going to target the middle-income housewife. It's only priced at 10 rupees. So they're like, okay, fine, we'll create a brief and we'll get back to you. He says, look, I'm really sorry. This is totally not my domain, but I think that if you can make it, if the brief could be for the working woman who does everything for everyone, and no one ever does anything for her. She's taken for granted. She's the housewife, she does this. It's like, that's a pretty good strategic positioning to create a campaign. Yeah, that's good, that the woman who does everything for everyone and no one does anything for her. What are you doing in marketing, man? Why don't you come across to client servicing? And he did. And the one day in the month that he loved most was the day that he would go to the creative team and brief them to make a campaign. And so he went to this team and said, it's a soap, it's got a gentle formulation, it's targeted towards the middle-class woman, and it's targeted more we are telling this woman, you do everything for everybody, it's time you did something for yourself. And the guy said, okay, fine, we'll create a campaign. He's like, listen, I'm really sorry. I just have this idea about a woman, this housewife doing a pole vault. He's like, what? He says, yeah, a pole vault. Because her day is all about climbing, ascending. And this soap actually lets her just breathe and exhale and relax. And so if she does the pole vault with her pallu tucked into her thing and actually does this pole vault situation, and we show her, finishing the chores of the day till finally when she reaches the top and crests the arc and crosses the pole, she can lie back into this luxuriate for herself. Like, dude, that's really weird, but it kind of works. What are you doing in servicing? Why don't you join creative? And he did. And the day in the month, this is the last one I promise, the day in the month that he loved the most was the day he would go and brief the advertising filmmaker who was going to make the film. And he said, look, it's a gentle formulation soap for the middle-class housewife. It's about you give something to everybody, put it back yourself, and it's a pole vault film that I've written. And he said, yeah, great, so we'll shoot the film. He says, no, this is totally not what I'm supposed to say, but I'll say it anyway. I see how this film should be shot. Like, yeah, really? How? He says, we see a black screen with a white line through it. And we don't know what we're looking at till we realize that we are on top of the crossbar of the pole vault, up in the sky, and we're just seeing this white line, which is the bar, and you see a dot intercut with shots of chalk being put on hands, pallu being tucked in, and you see a dot that slowly, and the voiceover says, 7 o'clock, make breakfast for Sanjeev. 8:15, iron the clothes for Aisha. 9 o'clock, make sure that Rakesh has taken all his office papers or whatever. 10:30, forget about the gender problem here, just stay with me on this. 10:30, go and give the clothes to the dhobi. 11 o'clock, shopping. 12, and this little dot in light blue, you realize, is this woman ascending on this pole, And finally she comes and goes, "Wah!" And she crosses the crossbar, and you see her coming into the frame. And as she goes back, you're like, 2:30, everything is done. And she slowly falls in slow motion into the sort of the comfort, the tarpaulin which has the name of the soap, and she falls into that, and there's a splash, and you cut to whatever. And they're like, "Dude, are you on drugs? I mean, what's this thing?" And they said, "What are you doing in copywriting? Why don't you join us?" So today, he is an ad filmmaker. And I can tell you for sure he's going to become a feature filmmaker one day. So wherever you start, wherever you are, ask yourself, which is that day of the month you look forward to most in your job? Which is that aspect of your job that really gives you energy on that day? Is it the day that the office organizes a marathon? And why do you love that day? Because you love the idea of everybody getting together, or if it's physical exercise, or the day they go and meet, the day kids come in, I don't know. Whatever it might be, and say, that's what I love most about this job. I'm going to make that my next job. I'm going to make kids my next job. And when you're teaching in that kindergarten class, say, what I look forward to most is the day we go outdoors and we climb that mountain. And maybe, yeah, it's actually, mountaineering is really my thing. And make that your next job. And even if you don't reach the bullseye, you will be crossing the penumbra of satisfaction and getting to the umbra, pretty close to the umbra. And even if at the end of the day you don't find that magical thing, this is the only journey to be on, to get closer and closer and closer to what it is that flows easiest through you. So, here you are. You're an ad filmmaker, or you're going to be a feature filmmaker. Now you know that, okay, when I make feature films, I'll ask myself, what is it about feature films that I love the most, right? Who knows, it might be the acting part of it. I don't know, we'll see. But I know that I'm on this journey, and it's very, very fruitful, and this is the only journey I want to be on. But there's still something that bothers me. Sometimes my parents say something that bothers me. Sometimes the politicians say something that bothers me. Why am I irritable when I'm with this particular person? What about that advertisement bothers me? And a lot of us actually have, at a subconscious level, many things that irk us. But consciously, we rarely articulate why it is that there's something about this so-called friend of mine that irritates me, that causes dissonance in me. So I'm going to need your help again for this. Imagine you died today. What would your best friend, given who you've been, what would your best friend in the world say about you at your burial or your funeral? 3 things. So, I really miss Kanika because she was loyal. So, loyal, how does that translate in real terms? A loyal friend is who? Somebody who is always there for you, who? Trustworthy. Okay, fine. So I really miss Kanika because, I knew I could depend on her. Anything else? Genuinely think about this for yourself and say, what do you think? Like Nasir, my best friend in the world, I think Nasir would say, I miss Rahul because he was generous. He was just. He was always fair. He called it as he saw it. He was never, biased or anything like that. And he spoke the truth. I would hope, given who I have been with Nasir, that Nasir would say these 3 things about me. Anybody else? So what's your name? I miss Prakriti because she's a huge loss to society. But what do I miss about her? What is the loss? That she cooked chocolate cake? As she was my best friend, I miss her because what did she do for me? What have I lost out on? Given who you've been, what does she miss about you most? She can't miss the potential. She selfishly misses you. Damn it, there's a hole in my system because Prakriti used to fill this hole. What? Anybody else? Support. So, Mihir, you want to say something?
It's passionate, like someone who brought a lot of energy.
She brought energy, so positivity. Okay, positivity, loyalty. Support could be many things, but let's say support is the right advice. Like, listen, babe, don't do this. You know, I really think you should be doing this kind of thing. What are we articulating? Do this. Please do this later on. What, given who you've been, would your best friend say, most likely say about you at your funeral? And what you will be articulating will be the three things most important to you. The three things that are most important to how you want to be received or looked at by in the world. And those will be the three values that are most important to you. Which is why, if truth, justice, and generosity is something I want to be thought of, truthful, it automatically means that I should have behaved that way, at least not unjustly, ungenerously, or untruthfully. For the good chance that Nasir will say these things about me means I can't be those. So that becomes my moral compass. That becomes who if I want to be thought of as this person, that becomes the person I have to be. And so therefore, what political leader will you vote for? Suddenly it's clear. Why don't you like this particular person? Suddenly it's clear. What about that advertisement bothers you? Suddenly it's clear. Consciously, if we actually understand, and those three things could be anything. There's no lofty this and that. Whatever those three things are, that's you. That's the thing, those are the things most important to you. That, I call it a moral compass, but it's your compass. It's your barometer. Does it sit well with me? If it does, then it automatically means that these three things are involved. You know? So, here we are. We are getting closer to what we love, but we are loving this journey. It's getting better and better every month or every year or whatever it is. I also know deep down what's really important to me. But there's still something missing. In our perfect, immaculate pursuit of happiness, success has to translate into happiness. What's missing? What is the third and last thing that's missing? Mathematically or logically it would seem to attain perfect happiness would mean the removal of all unhappiness. Surely. Now, which of us can say with our hands on our heart that when that 90-year-old woman, beggar woman, comes to our car window at a traffic light in the city we live in, holding possibly a dead child in her arms with 10 or 15 flies sitting on that child's face, and she herself has got bandages and she's got sores, and she knocks on your door with a mixture of aggression, insolence, and desperation. Although we look away, the first time she came, what did you feel? Certainly you must have at least felt, man, this country, or this world, or like, both guilt and helplessness. So now let's talk about this last impediment to the most joyous ride, which is what life should be, is this. If I say to you, we all have sore spots, we won't deny it. For example, if I say to you, stray dogs, you're like, Rahul, you know, I care about stray dogs because I'm basically humane, but it's not a thing for me. But if I say to you, child sexual abuse, and you've been abused as a child, or your sister has, or your brother has, suddenly you go, yeah. I mean, let's not, I can't even, like, yeah. Find the spots that are most sore within you. It's related to that old woman knocking on your car door. Hold the thought. So let's say it's sexual abuse. if you were running to an examination at Harvard, your final examinations are happening now, April or something, right? March, April, or whatever, a very important examination, all right. And you were late. You were late for the examination. It had started. You were 5 minutes late. A nightmare of nightmares. What is that amount of money that if you were running to the examination that falls out of your pocket that you would look at, just keep going to the examination hall? What would be the amount of money? They're just willing to just let it go. You're already late. A penny? Okay? Sure? Anything else? A penny? Whatever. So you might say $1, you might say a penny, depending on how important the exam is, how late you are. Just say, listen, it's gone, it's trickled down that grate, and it's ridiculous. I'm getting out of here, right? That's what I want. That's what I want you to give me. That's all I want. I want you to give me that penny's worth in your time, your skill, or your money. Prakriti, will I know that you want to work on this child sexual abuse thing. Will you work at this NGO for 19 hours a day? Are you mad? I'm at Harvard, dude. Are you crazy? I can't do that. Could you do 19 minutes a year? Of course I can. I don't have any time, Rahul. Okay, do you have money? Could you give me that penny? Of course I can. You have neither time nor money, but you have skill. You play football beautifully. Could you teach all the kids who are in the home play football? Oh yeah, gladly. But not once a year? Yeah, of course. So you're addressing the sorest spot in your psyche, in your soul, and you're only addressing it and doing for it what is completely doable. But the next time you're in your car and that old lady knocks at your window, you're going to look her straight in the eye and know that you are already doing something to remove unhappiness from this world. But it's come from totally from within. And that will grow. That will grow, and it will grow because giving is a phenomenally addictive thing. That will grow. So there you're working. Obviously, I'm making stark generalizations here. You realize that life is always more blurry than that. There you're working on the removal of things that cause you unhappiness. There you have what I call a compass for you to understand who you are and what you want to be and what you want others to be and what kind of world you want to live in. Which country do you live in then? If this is what I believe in, which is the country I should live in, or which society should I belong to? Or who are the friends I should keep around me? And of course, as we started, what I do for a living is either what I was born to do or what is increasingly becoming more and more fun from where I started. And it's these three aspects that they've just happened to me over time. And I thought I'd just put it out there so now we can talk about one or all of these aspects, or certainly you don't have to ask me questions. You can just talk about anything that you feel, or disagree, or debate, or anything. Let's have a conversation and let's discover things together. No, you don't have to clap. It's fine.
Very good,
Thank you. So, yeah.
I guess we would like to take questions if you have them, and I guess I'd like to start off by asking you. I think, and thank you very much for your talk. I think that if my memory serves me correctly, you founded your NGO in 2006, was it? And you talked about a particular trajectory that you had as well, and you came out of advertising and into films, and you're an actor and on stage and things like that. So could you talk a little bit about what it was in 2006 or around that time that really drove you to change direction? Because I mean, as I read your biodata and things like that, I guess that's an Indian term, isn't it? Biodata, is it? It was striking how much you've done. and the work that you did at the time of the tsunami and things of that nature. So what it was that sort of drove you in 2006 to, or thereabouts, to sort of, and energized you and galvanized your passions to help
Sure,
people.
Richard. So here's the thing. In 1992, there were horrific riots in Bombay, and it was targeted Muslims. Now, it's never been incontrovertibly proved, but the Sri Krishna Commission report remains untabled in Parliament. And there, of course, please, Richard, please sit. I mean, you don't have to. Yeah, just be comfortable. So, I think all of us are born with a social conscience. Very quickly, we realize that littering is just kind of uncool or spitting. We know the few things without really being harangued about it. And then there comes to a point where there's a social awareness, where your conscience is suddenly made you become aware of stuff. So for me in 1992, when I was 25, I was horrified by what was happening. I was stuck in somebody else's house. In fact, I was in theatre in those days, and I was at my director's house rehearsing. I couldn't go back home for a week. And we would read about arms being cut off and this Muslim locality being targeted and this place. And finally, I ended up at Nasir, my best friend's house, who was at the time in Colombia, taking off the nameplate of his parents' name from the door of their house because that locality was being targeted. And I did nothing. I did nothing to alleviate that pain. I didn't take part in relief. I didn't write. I didn't raise my voice. Not that I was well known at the age of 25, but you can just be a citizen and you can do your bit. I didn't forget about going to the Muslim areas, forget about sending an appeal, nothing. And I nursed that shame to this date. And I wasn't young, I was 25. And so, those next 10 years I used to become socially aware. Who am I? What do I like doing? What bothers me? Which are the issues that really bother me a lot? It turned out to be gender justice and communal harmony. And then in 2002, when the Gujarat riots happened, and there was a level of violence inflicted on women that we hadn't seen from 1947. And you should read up on that. It's just horrific. Apart from, of course, it being so many Muslims being murdered and killed. But that level of cruelty, and I said, okay, thus far and no further. This is where, from social conscience to social awareness, I'm now going to move into social activism. That very few people do, and it's not a big deal if you don't. And so the first thing I did was I went to Malika Dutt, this lady who runs this wonderful NGO called Breakthrough, and I said, I would like to work with Muslims and with women. And she said, fine. And she introduced me to Nandita Shah and Nandita Gandhi at Akshara, who work with Muslim girls who are so orthodox, come from such patriarchally suffocating places that they can't even leave their home to come to the Akshara center. It's a big deal if they're allowed to leave the home to come to the center once a week or whatever it is. Anyway, I began, I don't know if any of you were there when I talked on the women empowerment panel, but I talked about teaching these women rugby and what I did. And it wasn't rugby, but just what the sport teaches you in terms of the parallels they can draw with their lives. But I won't get into that. So for 2004, Richard, to about 2004, when the tsunami struck on Boxing Day, December 26th, I was working with Akshara and I was feeling, as I said, this is one of my sore spots, and I was feeling better about myself. I was watching the tsunami happen, and I called up Amitav Ghosh, the writer, who teaches here apparently, and I said, Amitav, I'm going to the Andamans because nobody's going to the Andamans. I can't see anybody going to the Andamans. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to work there. Let's see what I can do. He's like just randomly, I'm like, yeah. So I made 90 phone calls. In 1 day's time, I was out and I was in Port Blair. And sure enough, while there were about 104 NGOs working in Nagapattinam, which is just a train ride down from wherever you are in the country, 250 rupees, to go to the Andamans, it's a 40,000 rupee plane ticket. So there were just 4 NGOs there: World Vision, Oxfam, UNICEF, and Save the Children. I ended up being there for 2.5 years. I got a coalition of 20 NGOs called the Solidarity Network that began to send relief materials according to what I would see on the ground. I made 30 trips to the Andamans I made 23 trips to the Andamans in 30 months. and we organized rehabilitation. Our architects went up to the Urban Development Ministry to talk about how to make new housing from sustainable materials, etc., etc. Lots of stuff. And so I'm sitting in 2006. I'm sitting with the Chief Secretary of the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the Lieutenant Governor. I'm saying, I want to do something I want to start my own NGO. And to cut a long story short, I went back and I thought, what is it that really bothers me most now? And I said, what really bothers me is that there are parts of India that are completely divorced from the idea of India, the foundational idea of India, which is, in our preamble, secular socialist democracy affording equal opportunity to all. I was like, this is an idea that's largely failed. This doesn't happen. So there are many parts of India, I knew even then, that they call India, India. Not because of anything else, but because they just haven't they've just not been made to feel part of the fruit we've bitten out of. So I said, okay, if that's what I want to do, and I don't want to make them Indian, I don't want them to sing the national anthem, I don't want them to, to be patriotic and nationalistic, and all of that stuff doesn't interest me in the least. But I just want them to sample and be given a chance to understand that they are also part of this idea, that this idea is available to them. So, since I was in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, and there's such a sense of discrimination between the mainland and the islanders, does anybody here know who live in the islands? The discrimination is passive. It's not active. We just don't care because they're so far away, whatever. 100 miles away from Indonesia, for God's sake. Why are they even part of India? The archipelago is 572 islands, 36 are inhabited. The total population is that of Colaba, a suburb a place in Bombay. It's 500,000 people. But So of course, I'm now giving you my considered response at the end of the 10 years we've been working. But at the time, we designed a program where we would select 6 children from the islands. This is not an educational program. An educational program, I start a school. This is about connecting the Andaman Nicobar Islands to mainland Indians who have been looked after and have been nourished by the foundational idea of India. So what are these connections that we make through the children? 6 children go into a school of 500 kids. We've also gone to Kashmir, so I'll just give you the Kashmir. So the idea is to educate them from the age of 11 when they come into grade 6 all the way up to employability, which is 15 years later. Could be earlier, but could be 15 years. PhD, MA, whatever it might be. So that entire education we look after, the parents are with us, the school, so there's a triangle of care, etc. But it's just 6 children. So what are we doing? What bridges are we building? I'll give you the Kashmir example. So 4 girls and 2 boys were selected after 18 months in Kashmir, and so that's who they are. And as you can see, there are 3 girls in hijab. I have a complicated response when I see a woman in hijab, despite all my education, all of that. But there are 500 kids in Rishi Valley, in Sahyadri school, who see Muqaddas with her hijab in chemistry class, then she takes it off and goes plays football, then she puts it back on for biology, then she takes it off and does a school play. And they've understood. She keeps Rosa, then she, goes across and does mountaineering with them. So 500 kids are completely aware that Kashmir is not about militancy. They're completely, because these kids, when they first join, make a presentation about why they love where they come from and why shouldn't they. And they do that, we nourish that all the time. Songs from Kashmir, stories that their grandparents told them. So that's happening. 30 parents every year are going to Kashmir now, 30 parents of other kids, because suddenly they realize we'd love to go to Kashmir or the Andamans, but we just thought it was unsafe or too far or what, we don't know. And our kids are hosting them there. The 12 Kashmiri parents who first came and sat on the lawns of Sahyadri school, thinking, this is a vegetarian school, it's co-educational. They knew all this, of course, through the entire initiative. But still, when you get there, you're like, we're in India. But then, gradually, like a stop frame film, that entire space fills up with 600 parents. And the chattering starts and they realize the preoccupation is the same. She doesn't eat, her glass of milk is left untouched, she studies too much. I always tell her, now she's got a cold. So they go back to their villages, the same villages where these kids were chaired on the shoulders of the villagers because it's such a big deal for them to be selected. They go back to those villages and say, you know what? People are the same. In India, it's not like, it's the same thing, man. It's just chill out, it's okay. Parents are the same everywhere. So the secularization is starting there too. So in many ways, and profound ways, this happens. Till such time as the question that everybody asks me is, yeah, but 6 kids, what's going to happen when they finish their education? Now, we've chosen children who are deeply connected and in love with their homeland. But will they go back after 15 years? Of Rishi Valley School, Sahyadri School, Sapphire College, Srishti School of Design, Architecture, Pearl Academy Fashion School, will they go back? And we don't know. So just this year, I had a very informal conversation with our first batch, Andaman's children, who are about 20 now. The Nicobari tribal girl, Matrina, who's here in this brochure, who's doing design school, is going to work, obviously, outside of the Andamans for 3 or 4 years. And then she wants to go back and look at how Nicobari houses, the tuhits on stilts, the round houses, and start looking at how what design philosophy goes into that. And she's absolutely certain she's going to go back and start something with design. Now, what she finally ends up majoring in, we'll see. But go back and start working with something, because in any case, her drunken tribal father has beaten and left her mother behind to face up to life alone 2 years ago. But she's not going to run back there because she knows we're looking after the mother. You can't just look after kids, right? You have to look after parents too. You have to raise the parents too. Bindu, she's also in the brochure, was moved by the whole idea of the environment because she comes from the Andamans. It's the most diverse, biologically diverse, one of the areas in the world. Sort of self-contained biodiversity places. And there's only one organization in the Andamans. So she wants to go and start an environmental NGO. So that's going to double the amount of environmental NGOs in the Andamans by 100%, increase by 100%. The third, Rukhsar, she's a Muslim girl. Originally they come from Bengal. Rukhsar is doing hotel administration. And when the Andamans is ripe for resorts coming in, the Taj is going to open a resort. Can you imagine if they find a fully qualified professional who lives in the Andamans, because she definitely wants to go back, who lives in the Andamans and she'll be snapped up. She'll probably be training and leading legions of kids after that who want to join those resorts and things. So that's happening. And so we went to Kashmir 4 years after the Andamans kids settled into Rishi Valley School. The other interesting part of this is, what school do they go to? You're taking kids 2,000 miles away. Which school should they go to? Well, we're very certain they're going to go to a school where the conversation is not at prep time about mobile phones and watches. They're going to go to a school that is very, very simple, very egalitarian. But the education is of the highest standard. So Rishi Valley School, Sahyadri School, these are Krishnamurti schools, are precisely that. Not coincidentally, they are ranked 1 and 2 in the country. It's very heartening to know that the parameters are right of ranking. So what happens is that you start saying, now we're going to Manipur, because our Kashmir kids are in grade 9 from grade 6, so it takes 3 or 4 years for kids to settle. So now we're going to Manipur. We are in Manipur as we speak, selecting children. It'll take 12 months. And we're saying, which school should be Manipuri kids? So what we do is we go for a month or 2 to the new area. We're going to the whole state, and we see 25 schools. And we sit and, there's a film, we sit and chat, it's on the website, sit and chat to a lot of kids. And suddenly we begin to realize that music runs strong through that state. They express themselves through music. You also realize that sport is a big deal. Girls, boys, in Manipur society, women have a place. So I'm thinking, which school which is egalitarian, high standards of excellence, deeply compassionate, values about compassion and love, and yet there's a sport music thing happening, and I'm going all over the country. We saw 24 schools, and we chose this Baha'i school. Is anyone aware of the Baha'i faith? It's a Baha'i school called the New Era School in Panchgani. Nice because it's also cool, it's on a mountain. Manipuri kids will not, sometimes weather can just destroy a child's life in a particular place. So that's what we're doing. And finally, how do we select these children, right? So you have 200,000 kids in Kashmir, 200,000 children in grade 5 to go to grade 6. The first 3 filters are, we are only interested in permanent residents of the state. We don't want, for example, army children who will go to Dehradun tomorrow and then to Coimbatore day after. Second, there's an income filter, obviously. So we need people who are below a certain income level, and so we say 10,000 rupees monthly family income. Third, we look at the kids have to be from an English medium school because they're going to English medium school. I don't know how many of you are aware, but 95% of the English medium schools in India don't teach in English. They teach in Telugu, Tamil, Marathi, but the exam is done in English. So as it is, they're way behind what this kind of schools that you and I have been to in English medium schools. So that's the third filter. And that brought the numbers down to 22,500. That's when we had to reach out. Our application forms had to go to this 20,500. There might be 3 in Sopore and 2,671 in Gandarbal. And we didn't reach. Of course, you can't reach them all. How do you know? I think we must have reached about 17 or 18,000, maybe 19,000 of these kids. And we got 12,500 applications. What is the application? It's a simple drawing and an essay. My father, Kashmir, cricket, MS Dhoni, God knows, whatever. And so for 12,500 applications reach 10 teachers waiting in Bombay, and the 10 teachers look at these essays, and some of them are beautifully drawn because the parents have drawn them. Some of them are beautifully written because the parents have written them. And they choose just the top 10%. And they're trained in psychosocial kind of, so it's like checking for articulation, imagination, some kind of spark. It's cool if the drawing that says my mother has a tigress, you suddenly say, I want to meet this kid, and I want to meet the mother for sure, but I want to meet this kid. So 1,250 do a simple math and English exam, which is the next stage. Which Sahyadri school, the school, they're going to sets, because you need basic math and English skills even today. In my life, I didn't realize, but math is around me, much to my dismay, but I can't do without it, right? So 1,250 sit for the exam, 125, the top 10%, go to the third and my favorite stage, where you have clumps of 20 across the valley, depending on where they live. And then we play games with them, Richard. We play games for 8 hours with them. But these games are psychosocial, scientifically sort of games that test for compassion, for leadership, for teamwork, for a sense of sacrifice, courage, grace under pressure. Okay, kids, you're in the middle of a very violent, choppy sea. There's a boat there, there's a boat there, there's a boat here, there's a boat here. 3 kids per boat, 14 of you, go! And they run to the corners, and 2 kids are left in the middle of the sea to drown. And one starts crying. And from one corner, one boy says, you know what, there's a piece of wood there, come on, hold it. And they're drowning. And someone says, I can swim, you come here. And so we're watching these games being played. There's a blind man's buff, which is you're connected with a thread, sewing thread, to your friend whose eyes are shut, and you have to guide them out of Harvard into Boston University from here, without that thread breaking. What does it say about your compassion towards that person, and what does it say about that person's trust for you, in you? It's blindfolded, etc., etc. I love that. And so 5 people are looking and just looking and responding to these children and making notes. And finally, they settle on the 25 kids that have just irresistible. They're full of love, compassion, interest. Somebody makes parrot sounds with their mouth. It's just a lovely bunch of kids. And then we go into their homes, because every parent lies about their monthly income. They want to get their kids out of the state. It's Manipur, one of the most troubled areas in the country. It's Kashmir. It's the Andamans. Where will we get? So they lie there. So if we see a Mercedes-Benz outside the house, we know there's a problem. Then we go into their schools and we ask the principals and the teachers, how is Sanjeev? How is he, blah. And then we meet their friends. Some very damaged children can benefit from leaving their family environment. We met one girl who in Kashmir, who was definitely being sexually abused by her father because she had brightly painted fingernails and makeup on her face, and she was 11 years old. And she talked about her father with such I want to say hatred, but it was envy and hatred. Anyway, so she wasn't selected finally for other reasons. That brings it down, just from 25 we make it 20. And then a 5-member panel flies down to Srinagar or Port Blair or now Imphal in Manipur and meets with these 20 kids for 40 hours over 7 days. 1 hour with the child, 1 hour with the parents. And just spends time with them. And that 5-member panel consists of the principal of Sahyadri School, in the case of Kashmir, Shaheen Mistry, for example, who's the head of Teach for India, back in India, somebody steeped in education and underprivileged children. Somebody from the gender justice movement is a must, so I'll get Nandita Shah from Akshara, or I might have Jyoti from Sri Mukti Sanghatna, whoever. A 4th person would be somebody like, maybe someone like Amit Roy, who is a psychologist, who works in Salam Balak Trust, who will give us another perspective. Or it could be a professor from Harvard who's down there for 2 months, and she's a sociology teacher, and just like somebody who would give us a fresh perspective. And then there's me. And that's when we spend time, and that's when we finally choose the final 6. So it's a massively expensive and incredibly arduous, and it's every day. And it's not about how can you scale this. Excuse me, this is not about education. This is about connections. So we formalize this next year by having 50 kids from the school visiting Manipur. We formalize this by the biggest festival in Manipur being celebrated in that school. I still don't know what Eid is. I only know biryani and savai. I don't know that there are 4 Eids or 3 Eids. What the hell? Bakrid, Eid-e-Milad, Eid-ul-Zuha, what's going on, right? Why did I not find kids from Kashmir, Manipur and the Andamans in my class? Where are they? And one doesn't have to go far. One can go to Dantewada next. One can go to Vidarbh next. And you can see the people who are just completely divorced from the idea of India. And that's only half the foundation, by the way. The other half is child sexual abuse, which, it's all on the website, but this is, I didn't want to talk about, but you asked me, so yeah.
Thank you for that. If there are any other questions, would you can ask them now, but I guess you should have the microphone, so.
No, we can hear you.
Yeah.
There's.
I think as a student here, it's hard to keep in touch with what's going on in India, especially because a lot of the media there at this point, you don't have as much time as I did back in India, for example, to sit and watch the evening news for 4.5 hours.
Sure.
And read the newspapers and understand what's happening in the country. And not a lot of the news that we get is biased or fact-based anymore. So I see you as someone.
I think you need to put the mic to your mouth for the sake of the recording. Yeah.
I see you as someone who's sort of up to date with the zeitgeist of India. So who are your favorite commentators within Indian media that you follow?
Oh, Ram Guha, Arundhati. Commentators is not the word. You know what I mean? But just people thinkers. Harsh Mandar. Off the top of my head, I mean, these are 3 people I think, I actually seek them out, and I like to hear what they have to say and what their view on their worldview is. Homi Bhabha here, I talked to Homi, just had lunch with him. He's great to talk to. I mean, in that respect, they don't necessarily have to be commentators, but you asked me in the Indian context, so Homi is an incorrect example. In India, well, these are 3 names yeah. You should follow them on Twitter or whatever. Arundhati is not on Twitter. I don't think she'll ever will be. But Ram Guha is.
Thank you for talking to us. That was wonderful. You talked about finding these problems that bother you and fixing them. And a lot of people here have a savior complex where we do want to go out and do want to help and do want to change the world in any small little way that we can. How do you solve the tension between wanting to do everything and having an impact in the very positive and concrete way that you are? How do you find that sweet balance where you're happy with yourself, with the amount of change you're making in the world, and wanting to do all of it?
You'll know. You'll know as soon as it becomes painful, and you'll know till the point of time that you can still do more. You'll know. There really is no answer. As I said, it's a penny for someone, and it's $1 for the other person, and it's $10 for somebody else. And that might also change even with the person you are. Certainly with me it has, because it's just, somebody asked me how many days a year do you work on your foundation, and I said 365, every day, actively 150. So you'll know. As soon as the time comes when you feel that you're being pushed beyond what you want to really, like beyond the emotional energy you want to expend on it, stop. Because in the eyes of those you're working with, if you say, I'll give you a small example, after great strife and madness, we finally managed to, after the tsunami, get this, you know what a pickup truck is, right? Yeah, that's where the phrase came from this country. A pickup truck for an island in Nicobar called Kamorta. And so all the tribal chiefs there clapped when I showed the papers of this pickup truck. It had taken us a year to get it. Don't even ask me the logistical and crazy madness about it. But at the end of that, one of the tribal chiefs said something in Nicobarese and laughed. So I asked, and there's a queen of these islands, the Nankauri group of islands called, I said, Aisha ji, what did Justin say? Justin from Hatoi village. She said, Justin said, it's wonderful that you have come and you've brought this car that's going to come into our lives tomorrow. But it's enough for us that when you say you'll return, you do, because nobody has till now. So the whole idea of under-promising and over-delivering, which is completely counter to what you learn in business school, for example, or in companies, which is, you have to push. When you're making a social contract, always under-promise and always over-deliver, because the opposite, then that disillusionment and the betrayal affects them. Anybody who feels that the next time around is tougher to trust. No, I think it's to do with the recording. Otherwise, you were super audible.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm a mechanical engineer, but somewhere I dream to start my own film production house one day. I haven't had any experience in films and whatnot. All I know about the film industry are the films I watch. So when your dream is so different from the track you're pursuing, you mentioned, you have to just start somewhere. But where do I start?
Well, in your case, you know what your bullseye is. Or maybe,
I don't know if I'm good at it.
maybe it'll take you. Yeah. So it's not that slow osmosis that my friend at the soap company did.
Yeah.
In your case, this is the first leap I want to make. From there, while you're in film production, you might decide, oh my God, I just love the makeup part of it. I'm going to become a makeup artist. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So to get there,
Yeah.
this is the best time in the world to get there. All you have to do is figure out who in your network of contacts is in the business. You're talking to one person right here who's in the business. So you can just say, listen, Rahul, help me. And of course I'll help you. I'll do whatever I can for you so that you can actually, go in there. And there must be somebody, somebody who knows somebody who runs a company or works in a company. And that's where you have to start from. And you have to just say, that's it. And even rationally, like we did the gardening thing, you can say, I give myself 1 year. If I can't make it there, I'm going to get back to mechanical engineering because I can't afford to. I have to pay back my loans, whatever. You'll know exactly how much time you have in your hands to do that. And go for it. I mean, I'm not saying I've been sent, but here I am. You can ask me. It's no problem. That's the way the world works, yeah. That's the way it works.
Cool, thank you.
Mir.
Yeah. So, I really liked kind of your guidance on following a spirit and, keep working away through life to find the right things and the world will be forgiving and so forth. And I'm wondering, as I think about this, do you feel that there is a risk aversity or a risk-seeking behavior that's inherent in certain individuals that is, almost just like optimism or pessimism? It's hard to overcome. I mean, if you are risk-averse, it'll take you just that much more to constantly find your heart. And I mean, clearly you kind of reinvented yourself over and over again, and so has that been because you have been kind of a more adventurous person?
Well, I think, there's risk averseness, say you have that, and then there's a deep, selfish desire to be happy? Which, which is heavier? Which is more important to you? And really, there are no rules, right? I mean, if ultimately somebody says, I'm not even interested in finding what I'm magical at, I'm actually happy to chill because I really get my pleasure from my kids. Well, that's it, you found it. Without even getting into any of this, you're right there. So I don't think I seek risk. What I definitely am never willing to do is to stop asking myself the question. Like, I'm not scared today if I ask myself the question, are you enjoying the work you're doing at the foundation? If the answer is no, I'll walk away from that. I'll make sure that the other people, I'll settle it. But I have no ego about that. I'll walk away from that and you might never invite me here again. Or if I decide that I do want to do mainstream cinema, I do want to dance around trees, I have no ego. I'll go straight into it. So it's just, maybe I just listen closely and hard, and my bullshit meter is very, very strong for myself. I can say, yeah, please don't lie. This is exactly what you want to do and you're enjoying it, so just enjoy it. Don't stand on any preconceived notion of who you have to be. Yeah, it's too tiring, isn't it?
We have time for perhaps one or two more questions. We have to finish at 5:30, so yes.
Rahul, thanks for sharing your story with us. So I wanted to go back to what Rakesh said about citizen leadership. And I'm from India, and I was raised in India, and sadly so, but my journey from social awareness to advocacy to activism, it took me plenty of years. I'm not giving my age here, but and I felt there was something missing in the school system, in the civic society, in the strata of how we think beyond ourselves, and sort of, in spite of seeing the 90-year-old woman every day, and in spite of seeing the 5-year kid every day, it didn't really do much in terms of taking me from awareness to activism. And it was only, when I got out of India and sort of my own personal journey and realigning my values to what I really wanted to do. Do you have any sort of idea on first why that is, and what's happening to really change that? Because I still believe that a lot of that value system is missing from basic education. And you mentioned Rishi Valley, but those are still pretty privileged schools out there. It's not mainstream, be it through Pratham's work or be it through a lot of the work which you do.
Yeah. I think there's so much of pain that you're born into seeing every day in India that you develop a kind of blind spot, deaf spot. It's a numb. You don't deal with it, and that then becomes an impediment to then opening yourself out in the later years to say, I have to do something, I want to give. But there's a silent revolution taking place. I go to about 200 schools and colleges across the country. Not 200, I'm exaggerating, maybe 100 a year, right? And part of it is because of my foundation work, and part of it because I'm always invited. I delivered a lecture to 250 school principals, and I got 50 invitations to come to their school. So I never say no. I try not to say no. There's a silent revolution. Sorry, what's your name? Sonali. There's a silent revolution taking place. And that's happening at what Teesta Setalwad and Shaheen Mistry will be doing, Teesta with Khoj, and teaching secularism in municipal schools, in Urdu and Marathi, teaching secularism in a vibrant, real way. Or what Shaheen used to do at Akanksha with kids, or Teach for India, all those wonderful fellows who tell me all their stories, because I'm constantly in touch, I'm very closely in touch with the TFI movement. And also at the Rishi Valley level, which is, you'll be surprised, but very many wealthy schools, where kids are very wealthy, don't really teach, never used to really teach this idea of altruism and giving back. And so it's happening. Every single person who is a Sonali is now a teacher, And so it's in every school it's not like, in our time we had socially useful productive work. It was called SUPW, where you went, I'm sorry, it's going to sound terrible, but you held a cancer patient's hand for half an hour and said, please sign this card. And then they would sign the card and you came away and you got 7 signatures in a week, and that was it. But if somebody had told me that it actually can be enormously fun, if you find your sore spot and do, like, dogs. I saw my dog die. I want to work with dogs. How much more fun would that be? Like, what do you want to do? It doesn't matter what you have to do, but it can be your time, your skill, your money. So it is happening, and it's going to take a long time. But compassion is something. I have a friend who actually teaches compassion. Compassion can be taught. It's not nature versus nurture. It is nurture. You can actually teach compassion. So that will happen, and it will happen at different speeds in different parts of the country, because India is Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, India and America, all, depending where you are in the country. South Bombay is, America, and sub-Saharan Africa is Dantewada.
I think that's all we have time for today, because we have to finish at 5:30. So I would like you to join with me in thanking again Rahul Bose for his talk today.
I just want to say that thank you for honoring me by listening. It's always staggeringly surprising, but thank you. Thanks.
And we'd like to thank you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.